The Quran.
Are we discussing Islam or Christianity? We need to discuss Christianity to see whether it's universal or not.
Yeah, but I'm just drawing a parallel with how you would do it in Islam.
Okay.
To see that holds.
Fine.
Islam, the Quran hasn't established every single punishment for every single crime on this earth, right? There's some that are well defined and some that have not been defined.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a way within Islam to derive those modern punishments, right? There's like the whole set of principles behind the Sharia.
Principles. There are principles behind it.
Principles and
Correct.
Specific guidance is being derived
Yes.
by scholars, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So
It's
why
not just
punish
scholar. No.
Christianity?
Islam, as I said, there are 4 to 5 sources of Islamic law: the Quran, the Sunnah, the ijma' of the companions, the qiyas or analogical deduction, and also some people say maslaha of the community, right? Based on all of these 4. When it comes to deriving laws from the Christian text, what is the source foundation principle in which one can say adultery, if someone commits, this is what has to be done with them?
I don't have enough knowledge about the way.
Ask the heckler just for now.
But I don't have enough.
See if he has the answer. Go and ask the heckler.
But hang on, let me just ask honestly. I don't have enough specific.
The heckler is going to remain silent because there is no solution.
But there is such a thing in Christianity. Adultery is also a capital sin, right?
Sorry?
Adultery in Christianity is also a capital sin.
But what's the punishment?
Well, I don't know about the specific punishment, but there is a thing within.
No, it's not about.
I don't know enough about.
Camille, I agree with you. The ontological status of certain crimes in the sight of God can be given. Like seeing a woman with lust is committing adultery in the heart. But there is no punishment saying do a heart surgery and remove the heart, for example, or remove the eyes. There is nothing there. There is no consequence of that sin.
So there's no specific consequence, but that doesn't mean there's no consequence.
How do you establish peace and tranquility on this earth on a practical level?
Let me give you an example. So in the Quran, when it says that you shouldn't eat pork, right?
Okay.
But there's no punishment that specifies if you don't eat pork.
If you don't eat pork, yes, principles of Islam, because it's sin and sinful, can be derived. It could be from as I said, particularly this example, if I don't know personally, it could be from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Whoever ate pork, for example, he could have punished, the companion could have punished, and so on and so forth. So we have all of this example at place. I'm sure some people will just say, yeah, there is something there precedent.
Okay,
but when it comes to, because these are foundational principles existing in our source of law. In Christianity, the source of law is not the people's own mind. It has to be foundationally rooted in
the church in Christianity. That's just a different
and
principle.
so if the Pope decides, you would agree?
Yeah, but
whatever? Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, as I said before, I have lots of issues with Christianity.
So if you don't, then you can't apply that. We have to be consistent.
No, but that's how it is derived, and that's a valid way. Whether you agree or not, that's a different answer. That's a different question, sorry. But it is a valid way of deriving law to say we have the text and then we have the church.
Okay, according to the Pope, what's the punishment?
For what?
Adultery.
Adultery, I'm not sure actually, but it might be excommunication.
Does anyone know? I mean, this is for sake of information for both of us. I don't know, and Camille doesn't know. Does anyone know? According to the Pope, no interjection. He can only say what the punishment is, and that's it. I don't like hecklers.
In that he is making an assertion that for some reason the Bible has to have a detailed list of punishments for crimes, implying that Christ didn't come here to free us from sin, but actually he came here to establish some sort of like jurisprudential system on earth, which is not what Christ came to do. So the standard he is placing...
He answered your question already. He did not come to do jurisprudential system. He answered you already. There's no point going any further.
Because Christ said himself that his kingdom...
Thank you, heckler. You helped her to understand and appreciate.
That's why I call him friendly heckler.
When the Muslims try and make these arguments, that supposedly they have a complete system. And you know they don't. It's a made-up system. There are always new scenarios that pop up and they have no answers. So they have to go to their random ulamas to make up a solution to it.
We don't make up solutions.
I mean,
so now...
So that's like the way he's describing is...
Did you understand?
Yeah, but
there is no jurisprudential system Christ came with, complete. That is now answering to the question that does Christianity have a solution? When it comes to crime and punishment, there isn't anything. On a practical level, there is not. You marry to Christ and your solution is solved.
Exactly.
He says exactly. See, that's what I mean.
Following the laws is redundant. That's my point.
Can I talk?
Yes. Camille, go ahead.
Okay. So yes, in the Bible there isn't specific punishment, etc. But if you look at the guidance of, say, the Catholic Church, adultery is forbidden. You know, like
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the status of a crime, whether it's crime or not. I'm talking about punishment. Crime without punishment. I'll tell you something. Camille, this is where I have to really explain a little bit.
There's no punishment.
When there, no. Wait. Of course there will be punishment.
But there's a punishment in the afterlife.
No. There probably will be. In an Islamic state, if somebody goes and starts eating pork and sells pork and so on, there will be consequences.
That's not found in the Quran.
Look. As I said, Quran is not the only source of Islamic law.
So where does it come from? It comes from.
Do you agree in principle? If we have crimes with no punishment, would it increase the crime, decrease the crime, or it will remain the crime rate the same? If there are crimes and there is no punishment associated with this crime, my question to you is threefold. Would it increase the crime, decrease the crime, or neutral, it doesn't increase or decrease the crime?
I don't understand your question. What do you mean?
Imagine now a crime is about murder. Murder. Someone murders someone. If there is no punishment of murder in a society, would murder increase, decrease, or remain the same?
Okay, so what is the punishment is a deterrence to the behavior?
No. Essentially, you will come to. But do you agree? Crime without its associated punishment is not going to make the society any better. Society to thrive and function, you need.
But it depends whether the punishment is in this life or in the afterlife.
No. I'm talking about this life. This life. This life. In a practical level, take the example of murder. If somebody commits murder, one person, two person, whole community, all the black people murdered, all the Chinese murdered, all the white people murdered, all the Bengalis murdered, whatever, right? If murder takes place and there is no associated punishment, my question to you to explore, would murder as a crime increase, decrease, or remain the same?
It would increase.
It would increase. Agree. Anyone disagree with her?
No, but
Why?
Don't agree with me?
Everyone agrees with you.
Oh, they agree with me.
I said anyone disagree. The reason why, because those people who have something in their heart, a feeling against other person, they will murder that person because there is no accountability, there is no consequence, there is no punishment, there is no deterrent. That is why if there was a punishment associated with it, it will make this into a check. Either stops it altogether, minimizes it, or decreases the crime. It will never increase. That's why Islam, Camille, do you agree now in Christianity, because there is no punitive penal system, it doesn't have a practical solution to decrease crime?
Well, the practical solution, which I think actually Islam also agrees with, that ultimately it's not about the world.
No, it's about this world. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Lord, give us the good in this world and in the hereafter, and save us from the punishment of hellfire. So, as Muslims, we follow how to live our life in this world as best as we can, with justice, fairness, compassion, mercy, truthfulness, and also think about our ultimate abode in the hereafter. We don't just simply become ascetic, go into a mountain cave and live like a an ascetic. We don't do that. So Islam caters the need of this world as well as the need of the hereafter. In Christianity, as we say, because it doesn't cater for a practical solution to the practical problems of this world, here or in an Amazonian jungle community, or 2 billion years later, if the world was still alive, people to remain there, in the absence or the lack of a practical solution, Christianity cannot be universalized religion, and that is why it cannot be a true religion that you are talking about. That is why Islam, which claims to be the finality of religion, the complete religion, the religion which is for all times and all places, it becomes the one for people to reflect on, to accept. Camille, do you agree?
Well, Wait, hang on. Agree with what? The fact that
Christianity doesn't have a practical solution to adultery.
Yeah, but so, as we were saying at the beginning, it's not because a religion has all of the
I'm calling friendly
answers
heckler, man.
to a practical solution that it makes it.
It's not about a religion which claims to be from God to be a final religion. It must have a solution. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, so for instance, if you take all the examples that you gave, there's no Christian that would advocate for, adultery, murder, or any, they are practical.
How do we deal with them? So when someone commits an adultery in a Christian family today, what is the solution of this problem?
In the UK, you still abide by the law of the land, right? You abide by the law.
Every Muslims are striving to establish the law of God on this earth. It's not just in Saudi Arabia or in Pakistan, in this world. It was implemented at one time, but it got dismantled because of internal or external things. But we are striving to bring it back because we know that's what the solution is. In the meantime, we are contracted in certain countries to be what? Faithful to the contracts that we have. But that doesn't mean we consider this is the best solution. We know what the solution is. We're striving towards it. That is the solution. Christianity doesn't have a solution. Instead, the solution it has is one about what? That you let the adulteries go free.
But it has, so if you go to the Vatican, for instance, right, which is a city...
Camille, just want to answer the heckler's point. An adulterous woman came. Right? People brought her to be punished. Guess what Christ did? There was a law that was beforehand. If anyone commits adultery, you should stone her to death, right? Okay. So what did Christ do? As a judge, as a man appointed on earth to implement God's law, did he implement the law that was given by God earlier? Did he stone her to death? Did he implement the laws of God? Christ came with the law of God. Christ came to say, "Oh our Lord,"
Christ came here to free us from
Camille,
the sin.
do you remember? I'm not speaking to him now, I'm speaking to you. Do you remember Lord's Prayer? Your kingdom come, thine will be done. Thine will be done. The will of God to be done. Where? On earth. Right. So Christ, if he's here as a representative of God, whether as a prophet, a warner, or a messenger,
he's here as God on earth, not representative.
He needs to implement the law when a crime is committed. Imagine now, okay, imagine God, I want you to have a thought experiment.
Okay, I'm just gonna
Come this way.
No,
I'm not talking to him. Camille, I'm not speaking to him. Camille, if you find it's distracting, you need to tell him off. Tell him off if it's distracting. If God came on earth, brother, 1 second. Try to understand one thing. Imagine God, in a certain belief system, came on earth and there were crimes being committed. Camille, are you going to be dictated by your conversation?
Should we time it 2 minutes?
Camille, are you going to be dictated?
Maybe I should talk to him.
Yeah.
Come back to that.
Go.
Okay, so
Thank you. I think it's right time you tell him off not to interfere with your discussion.
I think it's right time that we tell you off, Mansur, for talking too much. Keep
Wait.
quiet for a second.
If it's distracting, we can have another time. Right. So the scenario I am illustrating, if God came on earth in a belief system and there are crimes being committed, crimes of murder, rape, and so on and so forth, right? Stealing. Let's take the 3 examples. Murder, rape, and stealing. God on earth, he comes here and he says, I am not going to do any implementation of punishment. That's not my job. That's not my role. That's not my mission. What he's going to do? He's going to let them go and say, you know what? You punish them according to your secular laws, not my laws. Does that make sense? Would it make sense if God was to do things like that?
Yeah, but ultimately, secular laws...
No, think about it. God on earth, imagine now God on earth, right? There's God over there on earth.
But I don't believe that...
No. Just to understand the scenario that Christians are bringing. God is over there. Everyone knows he's God, let's say for the sake of argument, and people are stealing, raping, killing people, right? Now, these criminals, what's going to happen to them? God on earth doesn't do anything. In fact, people then, instead of going to God, what I'm going to do? Are you going to punish them or not? God, without any information from God, they go to Caesar. They go to this leader, that king. Would that make any sense?
My kingdom is not of this earth.
Would that make any sense?
I think it could make sense.
I have a question for you.
Can we take that question if you don't mind?
Okay.
All right. She's not a heckler. Not on my list.
I don't know much about Muhammad, but so Muhammad, if he was on earth and somebody did something, Muhammad would punish them?
Not himself. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being, when he was a state leader, there would have been a system of governance, laws and for punishment and crime. And based on that, being a statesperson,
But Muhammad wouldn't punish
no.
them.
It's not, I'm answering. Not individually, because he has established a state in which there will be a judge, there will be a judge in which the crime will be established, and then the punishment on an established criminal will be implemented.
But don't you think that's the same in Christianity? Because they have I'm non-religious, by the way. Used to be a Catholic, so, But so we have the Ten Commandments that we shouldn't do these things. So don't you think it's a similar,
So the example,
similar thing?
it's not similar. I would wish it was like that, but it's not in practical level. So the example, the practical level, if someone now commits adultery,
Right.
having sexual relations outside marriage,
Right.
Christianity does not offer a punishment for this criminal behavior.
It's okay, so let's just say right here in England.
On this slide.
Let's just say right here in England, and a woman, a Muslim woman commits adultery. You're going to stone her to death in England?
No, I'm not asking for what
don't
punishment.
think so.
I am saying, according to the law of God, how does the law of God take care of instability in a society?
How are you going to do that here?
No, it's not me in
I'm
mine.
asking you a question. I mean,
The answer is this.
Yes.
Christianity does not offer a solution.
But neither does the Muslim religion.
We have a solution. No, in England, Muslims are not in power. Muslims-
I'm truthfully curious. I really am.
Muslims are not in power in a legislative sense in England,
Right.
where they do not implement Islamic law
Right.
and implement crime and punishment
There's a
system.
little bit of Islamic
No.
law here. A little
Not in the legislative body.
But
This country is not run by Sharia law.
Yes.
So because of the absence of the Sharia law, Muslims cannot expect the adulteress to be punished in the Islamic way, because it's not run by Islamic law. It's a secular country. But if you have a country in which they implement Islamic law, they can implement the punishment to an adulteress. So the question we were talking about,
Do you think in this day and age now that most Muslim men,
We're going to bring it back.
I don't know how many are here, would want a woman to be stoned to death?
the question is not about the modality of punishment. The question is about whether there is a punishment and can it be implemented to stabilize the society. Islam as a holistic, to give you an example, can I, and then I'll come back to Camille, is that okay? Islam gives a system of, for example, you cannot steal, because stealing is taking away the rights of another person. And stealing carries, after it's established that this person didn't have a need to steal, and it was secured under lock and key, and he broke or she broke on that lock and key and stole it. It wasn't like hanging off £1 million in the back pocket and walking in the public. It wasn't like that. It was from a safe, locked under lock and key, and it was all the security measures. The one who stole, he was not a billionaire with no need. He was not someone who was like a poor person with a need, and so on and so forth, right? All of that things, and once crime is established, this person will be punished by cutting off the hands. Right. Now, if it is established that this person stole a bread from a supermarket because they were dying of starvation, no food, no one offered, no neighbor offered food for him to live, no state as a body gave him this food, the punishment of cutting the hands would not be applicable, cannot be applied. Anyone disagree? Anyone disagree? Raise your hands.
Probably can.
Look around.
Actually.
Okay, how many Muslims are there? Raise your hands.
How many what?
Muslims. And how many of you disagreed? No one. Why?
I disagree.
Because he's
how
not a
would you
Muslim.
establish that the person
So now,
only stole
as you realize,
nobody gave them
there are
food?
conditions.
Technically,
You can ignore him, he's a
anybody
heckler.
made the arguments. But
There
how
are-
would you know if it was true?
There are conditions.
4 witnesses, 12,
But
13.
I cannot. I'm trying to answer you, but he's distracting. So there are conditions which needs to be met before punishment is implemented. But the fact of the matter is, when the system of governance is in place, it cannot be only crime and punishment. It has to be holistic. Education system, social system, moral system, all of that. Because people need to be
Go to university.
people need to be educated that stealing is wrong. You cannot punish someone without telling them stealing is wrong.
But don't we, as a society, I mean, given religion different, everybody knows you shouldn't steal,
But
whether you're religious or not.
but the issue is not everyone steals.
Right.
So those who steal, we need to deal with them to prevent them from stealing your money, your house, your jewelry. We need to stop doing that because you have your right of your own property. That should not be.
You don't think the laws of the land are enough?
They're not sufficient. That's why Islam has a complete solution. So if you turn to Camille. So the example I've given you demonstrates Christianity of today doesn't have the foundational principles of being an universal religion.
Let's come back to the specific prescriptions of the religion, maybe in the future discussion. But I wanted to come back actually to a completely different topic.
Sure.
Carry on doing it.
Stay in the Quran.
All right.
Okay, everyone, pay attention.
All right, back on track. Back on
Pay attention, everyone, to Camille.
Okay.
Carry on going.
Defining legends, bro.
Carry on going.
Brother, don't speak to a heckler.
Hey, stay where you are, my dude. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. I was waiting for that.
About time you implemented the law.
All right, anyways, so the thing I'm actually interested in right now is like the evidence for Islam, right? So last time we talked about the prophecies, the miracles, and we talked about
Why aren't there evidence for Islam?
what's that?
Why are they not evidence for Islam?
Yeah. So one, you said,
Take care.
so I mean,
Before you go, before you go. Just 1 second, sorry. We would, from the bottom of our heart, invite you to look into Islam and accept Islam, become a Muslim, which is surrendering yourself to the will of God.
I don't believe in any religion.
No, it's not about religion, it's about knowing the one who created you and thanking and being grateful to that creator. Because you and I know, I did not create the universe,
Right,
neither did you. So it's to be thankful and grateful to that creator of ours, and we say this is the one who is worthy of our worship.
Well, I'm interested in all religions, to be
Yeah.
honest.
So
I
this is
totally am.
so the
You know,
one who's
I'm
worthy
open
of
to
our
everything.
worship. The one who's worthy of our worship is the one that we are asking you to embrace him and follow the law and the will and the guidance to that, and that is Islam. If you didn't know much about it, I'm sure my friends and my brothers and sisters are more than willing to explain to you because I'm engaged here, not engaged in the sense, but in a conversation.
Come back next Sunday and see
And
what
we
you're
can have a
talking
talk
about.
discussion. But please speak to my brothers and my sisters over there. Right? You take care. Until then.
Also, I would like to say, by the way, thank you for your time. Thank you for taking that time with me.
all
I
right.
really appreciate it. And
appreciate
despite all of the heckling
It's okay.
going on, it's an enjoyable discussion, personally at least. I'm doing that genuinely in the spirit of truth. I'm not here to cut anyone down. I'm just really interested in what you've got to say. I will push back if I don't, if what I think you're saying doesn't make sense to me. But
Would you be interested if you didn't have any counter back?
Yeah, exactly.
If you agreed with everything, you would be Muslims by all then. But at the end of the day, we would like you to become a Muslim, and that's why I'm willing to take your pushbacks and try to answer them as you go along.
All right, so I wanted to come back to prophecies, as in the actual kind of evidence for Islam.
Yeah.
If you take away the prescriptions and stuff like that. So this, prophecies and miracles don't really speak to me in general. Like I think, and that also applies to biblical miracles, by the way.
Okay.
Like I don't think that those are particularly.
Sure.
I don't really resonate with that. But just for sake of argument, one point that you mentioned last time, you mentioned this book of 500 miracles that the Prophet did.
I said 300 miracles. Yeah.
300, sorry. But the Quran itself states, I think, several times that there were no signs given to Muhammad.
No, this is what we explained before as well. This is what the Quranic picture of what a miracle is. Anytime miracle is sent, people in their habitual nature, they disbelieve in the miracles. So God says, "Ma mana'aka." Nothing has prevented me from sending miracles except the people of the past disbelieve in them. So in general, God is not willing to provide miracles and miracles to make people believe, because people in their nature, they disbelieve in the miracles. So even when he sends miracles, they keep on disbelieving in it. That's point number one. Point number two, God does not give in to people's demand of miracles. They say, okay, you know what? Give me a mountain of gold, I will believe, for example. He's not going to give in to this kind of miracles because these are silly claims people want to make. Even if it was the, because the Quran says, even if there were mountains of gold, stairs going up to heaven, the dead were to speak, they will still not believe. Because belief is not just what they're demanding miracles for as a belief, it's something which is in their heart, the stubbornness and arrogance and pride, and many of their psyche, the ego, that's the problem, not about the evidence. So Quran does not in any way say, oh, Prophet Muhammad was not going to be given any miracles. The Quran says miracles is a matter of time, but it will never be given according to their dictates. And the Quran says that when the miracles are given, the ayats are given, the example I've given you about the splitting the moon, وَإِذَا رَأَوْا, when they see this sign, they say this is a magic, perpetual magic and so on. So miracles were performed by the Prophet. The Quran does not somehow say no, it didn't. The Quran affirms that was the case, but people's reaction is it's magic, and the Quran reprimands them. Like, what's there for you not to believe? You see it with your own eyes and you disbelieve. So these are the people that really we're going to have a good accountability in the hereafter, because seeing something in front of their eyes which it cannot be accounted for as a natural thing that people do, like magic and things like that. Some people learn this trick. When they could see clearly, if you and I were there and the sea parted by the staff of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, Camille, are you going to just say, let me rub my eyes? What am I saying? Am I be having some kind of delusions with some narcotic gas? You're not going to see that. You see that in front of your face. This is called Ainul Yaqeen. This is your truth, reality of your own eyes. You saw that in your own eyes. You are not going to question like, oh, this didn't happen. That will be an evidence against you at that point if you didn't believe in it. So when miracles do happen, and some people just disbelieve in them by saying this is a magic, like they did with Christ and they did with Moses, these people will really have no excuse in the day of judgment. In that judgment day, they will have to account, okay, here, that was an evidence in front of you. Why did you disbelieve and reject the evidence? What are they going to say? Oh, I was deluded? Because there will be no counter back. There will be no pushback from them because they cannot argue against it. Because you could not explain that this was not a miracle performed by a prophet and a messenger. That's what we're talking about. Quran affirms miracles of the Prophet. And one of the examples I given you, the Quran clearly says, is about splitting the moon. When they see, وَإِذَا رَأَوْا, when they see, they see that.
Again, the Quran
ignore the heckler. No, don't even listen to the heckler.
Commentators say that that's a sign of the end times, not Muhammad doing it. So
look,
actually, you're right, Camille.
Here.
There's nowhere in the Quran where it says that.
So this is the chapter here.
It talks about the miracles of Musa, of Isa, even Abraham, but not Muhammad. It's Surah 54, verse 1. And now the time
to me,
has come.
the splitting,
hour drew near and the moon did rent asunder. It's happened, right?
Nowhere. You could even read Tafsir al-Quran by Sayyid Maududi.
I'm not gonna take this example out of thin blue. Historical event, and
it hasn't happened yet.
When they see a miracle, they turn aside and they say transient magic.
Where's Muhammad 9 times?
وَكَذَّبُوا, and they call a lie and they disbelieve. This is in past tense, and follow their low desires, and their affair has to be appointed term. So when they saw this, they called it magic and they disbelieved in it.
Yeah, but he's got a point in that Muhammad.
What?
It's not a performed specifically by Muhammad.
Hang on. Who did this miracle?
Well, according to Sayyid Maududi.
No. In here, during the time of the Prophet, the Quran was given to him, right? And he's doing that. Now what we're going to do is, we're going to be so hyper skeptical, we're going to say the Prophet didn't exist, he didn't say this, all the hadith are not, try to understand. The hadith that talks about that this is a historical event that took place like this nature, this is the reaction of his people, we're going to disbelieve. Exactly, see? Hadith came later, Quran came later. How much are we going to dismantle this skepticism of the historians which are known as revisionists? Revisionism is a school of thought in historical criticism in which they try to reject all of the historical details and say, maybe he didn't exist, maybe the people didn't exist, maybe Mecca didn't exist. Do you know that?
Yeah.
They're even talking about saying Mecca didn't exist. Subhanallah, the Prophet didn't exist. So what do we say about these people? the hyper-skeptic revisionist, you are against the historical memory of the people, going against the data. We have historical data of a place, of the people, and their artifacts, and their beliefs, and their systems, and their writings, all of it. How much do you want? Writings after writing, in inscriptions, in papyri, in writings in later works. No sane historian would doubt, for example, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ existed and he preached in Arabia and he had this kind of belief about him. No sane one.